Okay. Hello, everybody.
Hello.
How's it going?
Quite well.
Me too. Hey, look, we started a new book. The sequel to
Yeah,
the book that we read before.
for the first time.
Yeah. Also, we're back from like a month-long break.
Yeah, unintentional hiatus.
But we we read the first 16 chapters of this book, which I think is a record. I don't think
I don't think, yeah,
we've done 16 in a sitting before, but this book has like 60 some odd fucking chapters.
yeah. And like, fortunately, they're not crazy long, but it's enough that it was like about 150 pages of this.
How many pages are in that bad boy?
There are,
Because the audiobook is about 21 hours long. It's like just on the edge of what I'll tolerate for an audiobook.
yeah, it's 587.
Pretty long.
Yeah.
But this book, it picks up not immediately after, which is what I thought was going to happen.
Me too, but it's like 16 months in the future.
Yeah. And like it starts with uh Call Sen, his funeral, right?
Well, there's one chapter that happens in the graveyard first with Barrow and Moot,
Oh,
I
right,
think.
right, right, right. It starts with Barrow digging up Lon's grave and
Yeah,
then killing a man for no reason.
yeah. I don't like that the second book starts with Barrow as well, because I'm like, he's already been given too much screen time as it is, but he and this dude have been, like, planning this grave 'cause the last book ended basically with, like, Barrow pressing his ear to the soil and, like, somehow imagining he could hear the siren song of Lon's Jade, which he would have no idea was buried with him, for one,
No,
and that's, like, a very unusual thing for a greenbone to be buried with their jade because normally it'll go to, like, their surviving family members.
right.
So, the way that he thinks he knows that there's jade in here is absolutely just a hunch, but it ends up paying off. But he's, like, been planning this grave digging extravaganza for the entirety of the time between the last book ending and this book starting, and, like, tonight's his big night.
I feel
And
like robbing a grave does not need a year and change to plan.
no, but I guess it's because it's, like, in a prominent graveyard belonging to a prominent member of the, like, Greenbone community. I don't know, but apparently, like, because Coulson died off screen during the break, which I thought was fitting, because like,
Yeah,
who cares? Um,
good riddance.
yeah, and he's being buried, like, right next to Lon, so the grave diggers, like, already pre-dug and did, like, most of the heavy lifting for these 2 boys. So
Right.
all he has to do is kind of dig sideways, grab the coffin, pull out, like, as much jade as he can get before the graveyard, like, guards come back, but they, like, bribed this cemetery caretaker guy named Nuno to let them in and to, like, distract the guards while they're digging, and they end up just straight up murdering him after, and Barrow kind of briefly considers murdering, um Moot as well, like, instead of pulling him out of the grave, he's like, "I could just shoot him now."
He, man, Barrow has the foresight of a brick wall.
Yeah.
And the only thing that keeps him from shooting Moot is that he's like, no, I need someone to like carry stuff.
Yeah, he just wants a lackey for, like, as long as he can tolerate him, but Moot's, like, living on borrowed time, I think, because it's only a matter of time before Barrow is just kind of, I think, over him
Yeah. Like he even
and
makes a
kills
comment
him.
when they're digging where he's like, this is all going according to plan. I don't have to do any of it myself. I'm like,
Yeah.
man, fuck you, you stupid bitch.
Yeah. Sheer laziness. He just wants to outsource everything. But meanwhile, he's like, this jade is mine by right. Like, I am entitled to this jade.
Yeah,
And he's always like, he thinks he's like the most special boy in the universe. Like, anytime we spend time in a chapter with him, like, there's this one quote that's like, the capricious tides of fortune pulled people this way and that. But Barrow thought they took special notice of him, that he rode higher on them than most, which,
oh
like,
god, like
not a lie, but it's
he's right.
infuriating. I
It's
know.
infuriating that he's right.
Like, why him, this piece of shit?
And like him and Moot are the two most mad for no reason boys ever to live. Like, what are you guys so mad about?
I can understand Moot more because Tar killed his dad, so he has, like, direct anger about it, which makes sense, but Barrow is just kind of there, and he's like, I am, like, entitled to Jade, that is like, and the world is keeping it from me."
Right. And like all of this mad his like mad quest for Jade stems from the fact that Hilo beat him up once and said, "Don't fucking steal, little shit. Now get out of here." And he's like,
Yeah.
"Ooh, I'll get it one day. You'll see. Ooh."
Yeah, and, like, the true irony, well, I don't know if it's irony, but Hilo thought Lon should have killed Barrow and the other guy that he
Mm-hmm.
used to steal with. Like, the very first chapter of the first book when they bring him to Lon, and because they get caught immediately the first time they try and steal Jade from this, like, old drunk Greenbone,
Yeah.
and Lon's like, "Nah, we'll just let him go," and Hilo's like, "That's a mistake." And now look what's happened.
Yeah. Okay, then it's the funeral chapter where
Mhm.
everybody's kind of standing around, and I don't feel bad at all because Paul Sen was a real son of a bitch,
Yeah,
and
like, it's about time he's dead.
Doru's there, and I wish he wasn't, and uh, like
Like,
they don't
everyone's there.
really go over the service much, but like Elo's just kind of there looking at everybody like, why is Doru here? Why is Aitmata here? The pillar of the Mountain Clan.
Mhm.
Um, and then he has to like deal with like the Godfather style. For those of you who have seen The Godfather, on when the Dawn, his daughter's getting married, he has to field like requests from people. You know, it's where the quote "on this the day of my daughter's wedding" comes from.
Mhm.
And Hilo essentially has to do that. Like he has to field requests from people, and he's just like, "I will do this for you because you are requesting it on my grandfather's funeral."
Yeah.
I was like, "That's weird." And it's of course it's all Lantern Men going like, "I need more money."
Yeah. But there is, like, one endearing appointment where it's that guy, Iton, who got his arms chopped off
Oh yeah,
last to give a message to Hilo, and he was like, "Just kill me now, I'm useless, like, please, please kill me right now," and Hilo was like, "You have a baby coming, give yourself a year. If you still wanna die after 1 calendar year, then I'll happily murder you,
yeah.
but give it 1 year, see how you do," and he's actually doing really well, like, he's got this baby that he loves, he has been working in a distillery that his father-in-law started, I think, and they're coming to him to ask for, um, I
Better
think
location, I think.
I think it yeah, they wanna open their own, like, Hoju distillery and work as a lantern man for the clan, and Hilo's like, "Fuck yeah," like, here's the whole lower floor of the Double Double, which was, like, that big casino that they took from
Right.
the mountain, and they're like, "Holy shit, like, thank you so much," and it's this really it's a cute interaction, and then he's, like, asking, he's like, "So if I still wanted to die, would you do it for me?" And Hilo's like, "Yeah, of course."
Oh,
Just
thank God.
and his poor wife is just standing there with their baby, like, how's this conversation gonna end?
He's also got. I thought this was one of the most insane things in the book so far. Is that this guy's got a disability monkey?
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that.
This monkey like goes and grabs him a drink, and then like puts a
Yeah.
straw in it for him.
He he apparently does everything for him, like,
It's
down to, like, wiping his ass for him.
right, which I thought was a bit too much, but the man's got
We
no
didn't need that
arms.
detail. Yeah.
Also, the narrator of the audiobook, like when one of Kilo's lackeys comes up to him and he's like, "Do you need anything?" Whenever the narrator of the audiobook does the voice of one of Hilo's like fists,
Mhm.
he gives him Ted's voice from Bill and Ted. So all of the like in my mind, all the green bones are just like, "Do you need anything else? My pillar? Anything you need. The clan is my blood." Uh oh, and then like Shay sheds a tear because Call Sen is dead, and I'm like, man, get out of here. The only one who liked him was you, and that's it. No one else liked
And
this man.
and, like, for how? Why did she like him? I think because he made her feel special
Yeah,
and, like,
because
played
she was the
favorites with
favorite.
her. And but it, like, being the favorite of the worst person is, like, nothing to brag about or
Yeah.
feel pride in, like
Look at how it worked out for Mussolini.
yeah.
Hung upside down. But then a never mentioned before aunt shows up.
That's right.
And she's like, "Oh, call Jen, I need your help." And he's like, "Yeah, what?" And she's like, "My son has been kidnapped or something."
Yeah, I don't really know what happened to him, but
He
I know
he
he's
was
being held against
arrested.
his will.
He was arrested for something. I think yeah,
Degeneracy.
it was just general
He was, like
debauchery.
yeah, it's, like, drunk and disorderly, like, I don't know, it's, like, got into a bar fight, basically, I think.
And
But she's like, a jade smuggler is holding him hostage.
right.
How does the narrator pronounce the islands that he's being held at?
Owiwa?
Is that it?
Yeah. Owiwan
'Cause
Islands?
it's spelled
Yeah.
Uwiwan. So I was like,
Owiwa.
Uwiwan?
Owiwa.
Okay.
Terrible, terrible name for an island.
Yeah, and he was like, "I'll go there, I'll visit myself to bring
Yeah,
fucking
don't
Bruno
worry
back or
about
whatever."
it. I'll handle it myself because on this, the day of my grandfather's funeral, I will do this for you.
I also like that this side of the family that the aunt is from is, like, this kind of dud side of the family that
Yeah,
everyone kind of feels sorry for. They, like, come from the same stock as the Calls, but, none of them have ever really accomplished anything noteworthy, and they're all, like, kind of dumb and just, like there's, like, a family parable that well, I guess parable's not the right word, but there's, like the leaders of the Call family were like, "Oh, the gods had to take from that side of the family to, like, give this side of the
yeah,
family all of our prestige and powers. So, treat them well because their lack of ability, helped feed into our abundance of ability."
yeah. It's great. I love it.
Mhm.
But that's kind of it for chapter 2. They kind of have like a conversation in which the title Jade War ominously hovers over the whole conversation.
Mhm.
Like it's just foreshadowing the conversation. I don't remember the
Yeah.
details of it, but I just remember going, boy, oh boy, this is almost a little too on the nose.
Mhm. Yeah, basically the only other thing that happens is Tar knocks on the door and then asks Kilo if he still wants to speak to Anden.
Right.
And, Kilo's like, "Yeah, but I wanna do it without Shay in the room because Shay's been present in the room with him while he's been having these, like, meetings. But, Yeah, because the last time Hilo and Anden had a conversation, it was at Anden's graduation ceremony where he graduated like top of his class with 4 pieces of jade,
Yeah,
and
the
instead
top.
of accepting them and taking his oaths to serve the clan, he ran away like a little bitch and said he never wanted to wear jade again because it would turn him into like a sociopathic monster,
Right.
and Hilo was like, "You have humiliated me, your family, everybody. I never wanna see your face again."
Rightfully so, honestly.
Yeah, it was a bitch move.
Also, before we get to chapter 3, I gotta be honest. I think I kind of have beef with this book so far.
Honestly, same.
And I'm
Like,
not,
it's just
it's not that it's bad, because it's not bad, but I don't like it.
no.
The way that
It's
things are going, I'm like, I don't like that.
I know, and I can't tell if, like, I'm supposed to not like it or,
Yeah, is this just the
like
Empire Strikes Back where we're supposed to be like, oh no, how could this be happening?
yeah, but at the same time, like, and we'll get to it later, but it's like some characters aren't really behaving the same way that they did, like, on a fundamental level, and it's like, did we just miss that they were this way? Or, like, I don't know.
But in chapter 3, Anden comes in, and we get a whole wall of text of Anden feeling sorry for himself. And truth be told, that shit fell on deaf ears.
Yeah, he's been living in, like, that small seaside village where Hilo and Shay's mom lives, and he's
Hmm.
been living with her in what's essentially like a retirement community, and he's
Yeah,
just
sounds
been,
great.
like, kind of yeah, he's just been living, like, his best coastal grandmother lifestyle, and, he's like, "Soon I'm gonna have enough money to afford my own place, like, you won't have to worry about me." And Hilo's like, "Oh, yeah, is your job gonna be able to pay back the amount of security details I've had to have on your ass for the past year because you refused to wear jade, and, like, you killed the mountain not the mountain, the horn of the mountain clan." So, like, Hilo's, like, really trying to impress on Anda, and that it's like, it doesn't matter if you wear jade or not, the Mountain Clan is going to kill you or try to kill you at some point,
Yeah,
because they're basically just, like, biding their time until it makes sense to do something. And Andon talks about how there's this one time where a man came up to him, like, in the community that he's living in to offer his card and was like, "Oh my god, I super admire that, like, you refuse to wear jade and become one of those green bone killers. Like, if you ever need anything, call me." And Hilo, like, looked into this dude and found out that he's working for the mountain because obviously he is. But
yeah,
Hilo's like, "They're being patient, but someday soon, they're gonna make sure that you have some kind of unexpected trouble, and maybe you'll call that number. And if you don't call that number, like, something worse is gonna happen down the line."
yeah,
Like, no matter what Andon decides to do, his, like, path is going to cross with the Mountain Clan in a violent way.
yeah. And Anden is not hearing any of this. He's just like, I don't see what the big deal is. Why can't I
Yeah.
just live here again? Like, you don't fucking get it. You moron. And honestly, I'm glad Hilo, like, of all the people in this book, Anden needed a swift backhand more than
Yeah.
almost anybody else.
Yeah.
And then Anden starts getting bitchy about it. And I forget what he does precisely, but I know it amounts to, like, my note here is imagine spitting in the face of the people who did uh everything for you, and then acting uh I can't read my own writing. Oh, spitting in the face of the people who did everything for you and then acting shocked when they're mad about it.
Yeah, because Hilo's like, "Okay, I'm gonna send you Shay and I have decided we're gonna send you to Espenia because we
Right.
can't keep an eye on you here." and we're gonna like you could benefit from getting a foreign education. Like you're half a Hispanian. And he's like, I don't like those people. I hate them. And then he like starts throwing a tantrum.
Yeah.
And it's like, I wish I died in my fight with Gon. It's like, oh my
Okay.
God, get fucking out of here. Like, pack your
You know what?
bags.
Me too. Get going.
Yeah, please. It would have saved us all this fucking outburst. But he goes to fight well, he goes to talk to Shay after and, like, complain to her, and he's like, You wanna do this, I'm not like you, I don't wanna leave," and it's like, what did you think was gonna happen if you decided to not wear Jade in a community? Like, it's Shay's storyline from the first book all over again, but now Anden is like except Anden wants to stay in town and not be a Greenbone, and Shay wanted to, like, stay in town and not be a Greenbone, but, like, have her own little apartment and her own separate independent girl
Yeah.
lifestyle, but Andon wants to be involved in the clan in every possible way, except in the way that he's supposed to be, and the only way it makes sense for him to be,
It's
and he's
so
upset when he
confused.
can't have
Like,
that.
it's bizarre that so many people in this book treat the clan like just the family business. Like, oh, my dad has a hardware store, but I don't think I'm gonna, get into the hardware business. It's like, no, no. This isn't the family business you can decide you don't want to be a part of. This is a
Yeah.
criminal empire that you belong to.
Yeah.
There's no choice here.
You were born into this. Like, this is what you have to do.
And then in chapter 4, because, Andon just kind of storms off, and then it's the next chapter, thank God. But we find out that Ken's got a girlfriend.
Mhm. And he's, like, settling into his life as the Horn. It seems like he's doing better than when we left him, because he was having a hard time, like well,
Adapting.
Hilo was having a hard time letting go of, like, his life as the Horn, but I think being the pillar has, like, taken him away from doing that everyday kind of, like, middle management that he was doing with all the fingers and fists when
But
he was the
also,
Horn.
I think Ken was struggling a bit too, because he kept asking Hilo, like, hey, what would you do in this situation? What should I do? What do you
Yeah.
think I should do? But he
Yeah,
seems to be
and
doing all right now.
yeah, he's, like, keeping Hilo out of things, like, not really bringing him into the things that he would have to deal with on the day-to-day until, like, he's already got a proposed solution so that he's, like, training everybody to come to him instead of going directly to Hilo for any little issue.
Yeah. There was also a word I came across in this chapter that I had never seen before in my whole life.
Mhm.
And that was when Ken swore long and vociferously.
Mm,
Never in my entire life heard the word vociferously before.
really?
Yeah. Turns out that
I
it's
re
just like extra hoopspa.
Yeah. I was that kid in English class who, like, every paper I wrote looked like I'd swallowed a thesaurus, like, it was so
Oh
pretentious.
no.
Like,
Yeah.
I had to write a paper about Lucifer's character in Paradise Lost, and I remember wrote something about him like, it's basically just being he's, like, manipulative, but I said he was dexterously sagacious.
Oh my god.
It was awful, but my teacher loved it. I
Well,
got
yeah.
full marks.
That's the that's the audience for words like that.
Yeah, it was bad news,
Sagacious.
but so I used vociferous quite often.
Sagacious is such a good word though.
Mhm.
It rolls off the tongue.
Yeah, it
Not quite
does.
not quite as well as one of my favorite words, which is verisimilitude.
That's a great word.
But
It's one that I would get tripped up over the same way I get tripped over behemoth, like, I always wanna say behemoth.
behemoth. But anyway, Ken basically is like, "Hey, bad news. It seems like there was some weird shit going on at like the grave next with Grandpa and Lon, and we
Mhm.
did some poking around and found out that all of Lon's jade is gone."
I don't think it's all, but I think it's a lot.
Like
Because I
most.
think yeah. I know, because I wasn't sure, because it seemed like they got, like, a bunch of beads and then some cuffs, but if I don't know, because Lon was buried with, like, an obscene amount of jade because of all the jade he won right before he died, and that was, like, the source of all of his issues,
Yeah.
but, I don't I was not clear on how much Barrow and Moot actually got out of the coffin.
I assumed it was all of it because he's a greedy little shithead, but also incompetent, so it could have been not all of it.
Well, because he wanted to get all of it, I thought, and then Nuno, the cemetery, like,
Right.
groundskeeper was like, "You gotta go, they're coming back," and so, instead of being greedy and taking all of it, he had to, like, patch it up to make it look like nobody had been in the grave, even though they found out immediately anyways, but so I'm still trying to figure out, like, how much of it they got. I mean, it's enough to make a huge difference, but it's not enough that Barrow's satisfied with the amount that he has.
Right.
But would
But
he ever
no
be
amount would
satisfied with
ever.
the
Right.
that's the thing, yeah.
And it's interesting that sort of the overarching main villain of this series seems to be someone that our heroes are not aware of.
Yeah, they don't know who
Like,
he is.
they don't know he exists. And he never, like, they live in his Barrow's mind rent free. In fact, he's
Yeah.
paying them to stay there.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's so embarrassing that he's so caught up about people who don't even know his name.
No, and, like, do would not give a single fuck about him if they did.
One of my notes here is "Oop, investigation failed," and I don't remember what that's from.
Um
Somebody.
Oh, is it Tar? And Tar's, like, off on his
Oh, that's
special
right.
project. Yeah, so Tar is the Pillar Man now, and he's, like, settling into his new role. Um, but basically, before Tar goes off on this little ambush, he and Ken decide to tell Hilo together that Lon's grave was robbed, and Hilo is, like, scary quiet, and he's like, "I don't care who you have to go through, find this fucker and tell me once you do." And then Tar has this little, like, special ambush planned where he's, like, driving around, and we find out that he gets to kind of, like, run his own little task force and not do as many administrative duties as
Yeah.
Wound Don had to do when he was Lon's Pillar Man, and he gets to just kind of not deal with managing all of the fingers and fists the way that Ken has to do, and he can kind of just, like, do his own shit. He has, like, a ton of autonomy. So he's trying to ambush this mountain clan spy named, I don't know how it's pronounced, but it's spelled Seko.
Psycho.
Is it Psycho? Okay. So he
Or
calls him and
Seiko.
lies.
Seiko.
Seiko, yeah. Um, he tells him his mom is hospitalized, so that he starts, like, frantically driving towards the hospital, and then they have, like, a roadblock set up, and then they shoot out his tires, and they end up capturing him and taking him somewhere, and then Tar is, like, beating him up, breaking his ribs, like, trying to get him to talk about the 2 kids who were sent to kill Lon or to fuck up the gentleman's club he was at that night. And he knows that there were kids involved, but he doesn't know their names. And Tar's like, "Maybe you'll remember in a minute." And he, like, beats him up some more, leaves to go get a pastry at a bakery down the road. And then he's, like, on his way back, and he finds Seiko has, like, escaped and also used a blade that was in his shoe to slice his throat,
Yeah.
and he dies before he can get any other information out of him. He's like,
Yeah.
"Fuck."
Investigation failure. Because like, he has nothing else after that. He's just like, well, guess I better pack it in.
Yeah,
That
it's been,
was
like,
the
dead
whole
end.
brunt of my investigation, was this guy.
Yeah, but it's also, like, I don't think anybody would know Barrow's name because no one cared to know. Like, he
No,
was a
he's
nobody. Like,
such a nobody. that they're just
they're
like, hey
never gonna
you.
find it out.
And
But
he's such a pathetic little bitch that they're constantly like, hey you, and he's like, yeah, that's me. Me, I'm the good one. It's me.
yeah, but he has like a little pep talk with Ken after, and Ken's like, "Don't worry, like this dude's just a reckless idiot with an ungodly amount of jade. He's bound to turn up at some point."
Yeah.
And Tar's like, "Yeah, you're probably right."
But that's kind of all of chapter 4.
Mhm.
uh in chapter 5, I think we get more of Hilo doing administration stuff, and it starts with like him talking with one of the lantern men. No, it's
Mhm.
Shay chapter, and she's dealing with lantern men, and those cocksuckers are still acting like they've never been paid in their whole life.
I know.
It's like cats who see the bottom of their bowl. They all just start wailing and screaming the instant they see the bottom of their bowl, and it's so like I would just like go into other areas of business. This is not worth the trouble keeping these idiots happy.
Yeah, this is the only time I felt sorry for Shay that she has to deal with these assholes. Like she's like having a tough time holding her own in this meeting too because she's like an accountant at heart and she's not really a people person and she's not thinking about the like people management side of being a weatherman. Like she's thinking about these numbers, here's the rationale. Like she's learning how to be more strategic and like stepping into the politicking side of it. But like at her heart, she's just like a numbers girl.
Yeah.
And like her master luckbringer kind of has to step in and smooth things over. And then she snaps at him after, even though she knows that he's right. Um, and then after this lantern man like leaves and she's having a debrief with Woon, he's like, you really have to fucking get it together with treating the families what they're owed. He's like, they're gonna talk about how you wronged this family. They're still talking about how you wronged Cowie Dawn. And
Whoever that
she's
is.
like, yeah, she's like, well, he wasn't qualified to be hired as a luckbringer just because he's the son of a councilman. And Woon is like, you're literally in this position right now because you're a call. And she's like, oh, yeah, I guess you're right.
Whatever.
Yeah. But
Uh,
then she gets like a phone call from the weatherman of the mountain clan after that.
yeah.
And he's like, we want to
Let's
have a
do a
meeting.
truce. Let's do a truce. Come on, man. You know you want to. It'll be a great idea. And
Yeah. And
she's like, he's like, why don't you just turn the jade mining back on? Come on, everybody wants you to do it. It's fine. Like, we all would love it here if you just turned the jade mining back on. And she's like, no. Then he's like, oh yeah, well fuck you, stupid little bitch. And he hangs up. Like, it's
yeah.
the mountains. This is what really frustrates me about this book is that both sides are acting in a way that is not helpful to anybody's cause. Like, the mountain is so reckless and so, like, transparently schemy that
Yeah.
anybody within 500 yards can see what they're doing and why they're doing it, and yet they consistently get away with it because No Peak never challenges them on it.
And it seems like nobody really cares that
Yeah,
the Mountain Clan has, like, done all of this really shitty, like, uh, the results of the Jade audit came out, and it was, like, proven beyond reasonable doubt that they were stealing jade, the one thing you should never do, and the one thing that their entire economy hinges on, and everyone's like, oh, well, like, I guess
yeah,
we'll just halt jade mining for the foreseeable future. And like, they're kind of being treated like an influencer who was canceled recently, but like
but not really.
not really facing any like actual consequences. Like, they're still on the platform and they're still like making content. Like, it's very
Yeah.
weird.
And anytime, like, the mountain is always scheming, and they're always trying to be like villainous, like
Mhm.
overtly villainous. And then No Peak will have a plan. And I think this might be the one weakness of Fonda Lee's writing, is that whenever No Peak plans about what they're going to do about the mountain, it always comes across as like a thesis statement. There's no real plan there. It's just
Yeah.
the thesis statement of an essay, and the essay is never written. And
Yeah.
the plan itself never sees the light of day. Like nothing gets done about it. And I don't know if like it doesn't feel complete.
Yeah, because even if, like, that the intended outcome is that nobody cares because the Lantern Men are still getting paid in the Mountain Clan, like, tell us that. Because,
Yeah.
like, tell us people don't care and why they don't care, because otherwise we're kind of just left to be like, is this a loose end that was never tied up? Like, is this intentional? Is it not? Like, we should know if it's intentional or not.
That's kind of the biggest problem I have with this book is that there's a lot in it that feels like she forgot some stuff,
Mhm.
or she didn't really think that part through, and we're left going like, so what happened? Why are there's no consequences?
Yeah, because it was such a big deal in the first book that, like, to find out that they'd been smuggling
Yeah,
jade and
and it's not
and
even like,
misreporting.
and the book makes it seem like there was no repercussions. Like later in the book they talk about how they had to pay back money, and they don't.
Yeah.
They just never pay it back, and nobody seems upset by this.
It's very weird, like, especially in a society where, like, this Jade Alliance is so important to like, from, like, an honor perspective and a respect perspective, where, like, one clan just showed that they could give a fuck and nothing bad happened.
Yeah, they've proven themselves to be supremely dishonorable, and everybody's just kind of like, ooh, that was bad. Very rude.
Yeah, it's and, like, it becomes even more baffling and confusing, like, when they like, later on.
Yeah. And it would be one thing if, like, it would be a good combination if the Mountain Clan, despite the repercussions, like, clearly Aitmata does not care.
No.
The character has made it very clear that she's just like, I don't give a shit about the old ways. I'm trying to make money.
Mhm.
And that would be fine. But even in like the face of her being like, your honor means nothing to me, they're still like, ooh, you, hey, very rude and not good. Anyway, you guys want to grab lunch? There's
Yeah,
just no,
it's
there doesn't seem to be any weight or
Mhm.
stakes. Like, tension is very low in this book.
Yeah, totally.
Because nothing seems to have consequences. So it's just like, well, if they don't care, why should I?
Yeah, that's very much the vibe so far.
But good news, we've got another. It's my favorite Barrow chapter that I've ever that has ever been,
Yeah.
and it involves like he is living his best rise and grind attitude. Like
Like,
he
I
wakes up in the
picture
morning and he shoots up Shine, even though he's
Yeah,
running out really fast,
yeah.
and he just sits there and looks in the mirror, and the quote is something like, he looks in the mirror and he sees like strength and respect, and my note is, God, Barrow is such a pathetic bitch. Imagine looking at yourself in the mirror and thinking respect. What does that even mean?
It's like Jeremy Fragrance when he douses himself in cologne and then just screams power. Like, that's the energy Barrow's
Yeah.
bringing. It's like that plus, like, that
Power.
motivational video that Jake Paul made a million years ago, where he's looking in the mirror being like, "You did something good today." Or he's like, "Somewhere down the road, another kid is doing something better than you. You're gonna find that kid, and you're gonna kill him."
Okay,
It's that
yeah.
energy.
And like Barrow, because he is a proud owner of Jade now, he found out about a secret club. And this is the most bitch embarrassing thing. It's so embarrassing. But it's essentially a secret club where people who have stolen jade or bought it off the black market go to show it off to each other. Because if they
Yeah.
go outside and show it off, they'll get fucking murked. So it's essentially like a crypto bro NFT hangout where the only people who care are each other. So they just sit around showing you fucking NFTs to each other, like, oh, look at this one. I paid fucking 25 grand for this one. It's so embarrassing, but they think it's so dope. Like they practice their little ninja skills, like running on the wall.
Yeah.
And they're like, sometimes I can do it really good, but other days I don't.
Yeah, they're just, like, doing basement karate, like, self-taught basement
Oh,
karate, and, Barrow is thinking to himself, he's like, "Fuck, jade energy is, like, better than money or sex," as if that's something he's ever had.
yeah. And you know what the most embarrassing part is that the do you remember in the very first Ninja Turtles movie, the Foot Clan hideout, where it was like a cool party, everybody had cigarettes and they were playing games and shit and skateboarding?
Yeah, yeah.
That place was cooler than this underground Jade hangout.
Yes.
Like, the Jade hangout doesn't have a young Sam Rockwell saying menthol or regular.
So true.
I'd, it's just like in the 90s that was, and now it's really cool and a bunch of sweaty dudes who are have to secretly keep their jade. Like they can't show it to anybody because any real green bone will just bend him over backwards.
Yeah. It's
Oh, what a great chapter. I loved it. Gave me a it was a barrel of laughs.
Yeah, it was a wonderful experience. There's, like, one conversation that happens one night after Moot and Barrow practice their basement karate, and they're like, "Yeah, I did really well tonight," and they're, like, having some drinks at the bar, and this man named Soradillo
Something
talks to
like
them.
that.
He's like, "Hey, you idiot kids who clearly have a death wish, come over here and have a little chit chat with me." And he reveals that he is a jade smuggler for, like, the biggest jade smuggling operation in town, looking for 2 children with a death wish to become rockfish who are jade smugglers as well, the
Right.
kind that move jade out of the country, and they're gonna get paid in money and shine, and then eventually in jade, and Barrow is like, "Fuck yeah, any job, I'll do it."
He's fallen for this like 3 times already.
Yeah.
The first time he started doing menial crony work because they were like, "Yeah, you might get some jade," and he's like, "Yes, finally!" And then that
One
didn't work
stud.
out, and he started working for someone else who's like, "Yeah, you'll definitely get jade. Am I right? Just keep doing this dumb crony work." And he's like, "Oh, finally, my time has come," and he never got
Mhm,
jade. And now this guy's like, "You'll definitely get paid in jade and shine, all the things that you currently want and will do anything for. Do
mhm.
this crony bitch work." And he's like, "Of course! I'll do whatever you say." And Moot's like,
Power.
"No, we don't need to talk to them. We have Jade now. We're actually like in a position where we can negotiate." And he's like, "Shut the fuck up, Moot! Nobody's asked you!" It's like, oh god, he's just the worst.
Yeah.
I I love him.
I do now that he's, like, so unbearably cringe. Like,
Yeah.
this chapter really kinda turned a page for me because now I'm like, "Okay, this is kind of fun."
He doesn't like he has no concept of how cringe he is. It's mwah.
Yeah.
Like the hallmark of a terrible movie is that they tried.
Yeah.
People purposely making bad movies isn't good. It's when they really wanted to make a good one.
Mhm.
But the next chapter is one of the in the I think we've been doing this a year now. Maybe
This
more?
podcast?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, it's been over a year now. We started in June of last year.
Oh. Well,
Mhm.
in the whole lifetime of this podcast, I have never skipped forward in an audiobook, but this is the one chapter I did it. And it's
You didn't
because it
even do it in Kingdom of the Wicked, and this was the moment where you had to skip?
yeah, because Kingdom of the Wicked was stupid. But this I was just like, no, I don't need to hear this. But it's
Well,
basically Shay we find out that Shay's been dating some dude.
a professor. His
Yeah.
name is Morrow. He's 33. He's tenure track. He's smart, scruffy, handsome.
Yeah, of course. And
Uh,
he
they
wears Jade.
I don't think he does. He has one piece.
Yeah, that
Like,
counts.
okay. Well, you would think that being a green bone in your mid-30s, you'd have more than the one piece you graduated high school
Well,
with,
he's one
but
of those guys that's like does Krav Maga, but then they say they're a pacifist. Like, okay, then why are you wearing it? Just take it off. Don't wear it.
Yeah, they go out for they're like they've kind of casually been seeing each other for like a while, but they haven't seen each other in like a month. So she goes to meet him at the lecture he just gave, and they're going out for like a dinner date. And they
Very
go to this
cute.
place. Yeah, and he asks her how she is, and she's like, "Oh, like I miss my grandfather. Like he wasn't himself in the last year of his life though," which is like, are we sure he wasn't the most himself he'd ever been in the last
Yeah,
year of his life? Like
sounds like he was
she's
exactly the same.
she loves to romanticize like this kind old patriarch that her grandfather never was.
Yeah.
And she's like, he used to be like such a force of nature. And then they have like a very boring conversation about economics.
I made a note about this because it was so stark. Like it went from a normal conversation to we're not sure how to present this any other way, so here is the political climate.
Yeah, yeah. It's very Sarah J. Maas when a character delivers their entire backstory in a dinner conversation for no reason.
Yeah. Because Marrow's like, so how are things at work? And she's like, well, let's talk about the political temperature of everything surrounding the jade trade. And it's like,
Yeah,
oh boy, that's not particularly
yeah.
great dinner conversation, but okay.
For them, they're into it because I guess his like area of expertise is kind of that. But the important takeaway is that he basically says, like, for most of Kekon's history, they've been an insular, tribal, isolationist island, trusting in Jade and the Greenbones to keep them safe. But that's changing. Jade brought the world to their doorstep, and now they have to take part in that world. And that's really like the conclusion of that conversation. And then, uh, is it Marrow?
Yeah.
He starts laying it on thick. He's like, "Oh, Shay, like, you're so wonderful. Even though we've,
Ugh.
like, barely gotten to know each other, anybody can talk about wanting to change the world, but, like, you can actually do it. Like, you're so pretty and forward-thinking and open-minded." And,
Cut it
like,
out.
Shay's inner monologue at this moment feels unreliable to me because she's like, you can tell the pull for her is like, I wanna fish for more compliments. But
Yeah.
in her inner monologue that in my mind is unreliable, it's like she's doubting that she deserves his confidence in her, which is like, we know you don't feel that way, Shay.
Yeah.
And she's like, "I don't know if I can make enough of a difference." And she's like, "But, like, maybe if you tell me about how nice and pretty and, like, smart I am, I'll start to believe it."
Yeah. And
Um,
he also mentions that he was in the martial school
right,
at the
yeah.
same time as her. I think he was a couple years ahead.
4 years ahead.
Oh my god.
He was like, "You're such a hot 10-year-old."
Yeah, and
He
he was
didn't say
like,
that.
everybody noticed you, and she's like, wait, you were at the I forget what the school is called.
Called Doucheron
Yeah, that's it.
Academy?
Called Doucheron. Uh, he's like, I bet you don't even remember me at Called Doucheron Academy, and I noted, no, Shay doesn't remember anyone that isn't Hilo or herself
Yeah, the only
because
2 who she cares about.
yeah, and it's only to defeat Hilo, even though he has no interest in this game anymore.
Yeah, he never did.
I also wrote, I feel like this would be a fun chapter for people who like Shay.
I hope?
Because it
I mean,
wasn't fun for me. But
I
essentially, sorry, go ahead.
um, there was one part I thought was really funny, but that's later. I think it's the part you skipped. In fact, I'm 100% sure it's the part you skipped. Um, but they finish dinner and, the restaurant owner comes out and is like, "Oh my god, call Jen, like, it's an honor to have you eating here. Don't even think about paying for the meal." And, Marrow is like, "No, no, no, I insist. Please let me pay for the meal." And it's, like, awkward because now she's not here as, like, a weatherman, like, gifting her, like, patronage basically or, like, a presence at
Right.
this restaurant.
But
She's, like,
what's
there as
funny
his
is
date.
Shay is like out of her chair, walking to the door, and
Yeah.
Marrow's like, no, no, I insist. And she's like, what? What do you mean pay them?
Yeah.
And he's like, I don't want to be beholden to you. I'm not a
Yeah,
green
which, like,
bone.
I kind of respect that,
Yeah.
honestly.
He's like, I'm not part of the clan. I'm not a green bone. So I'm going to pay the woman what I owe her. And she's like, trying to do the math? Like, it doesn't compute with her. And it's like, you were out on the street a year ago. What are you having such a hard time comprehending?
Well, then they're, like, walking around the neighborhood because I guess this restaurant is in the neighborhood that her old apartment was in, that she lived in for, like, 3 days, and she's, like, feeling so nostalgic and, like, showing him all her old haunts that she maybe saw one time, like,
So
in
embarrassing.
the very short amount of time she was an independent lady living in her own apartment. She's like, "Oh my god, I used to go here all the time." It's like, "How long did you live here again?" Like, 2 weeks?
This is when I was starting to be like, I could just skip this. Because I was
Well,
like, the flirting is really gross and annoying. Like, it's far and away beyond any kind of like, there's cutesy, sweetsy pie flirting, and then there was what was happening. And I was like, ugh, God.
yeah. Well, it's just Shay fishing for more and more compliments because she knows that he's good for them. Um, but they, like, start making out and they go back to his place, to have sex, but mostly it's just, like, him going down on her for, like, the evening. They have sex for, like, 3 seconds. By the way, the word scrotum is used in this scene. I was like, "Oh, it's so clinical." Like, yeah, I was like, "That was an interesting word choice."
It's like when
But
the word buttocks is used later. I was like, no, way to take me right out of it.
I know, I was like, "Scrotum, okay." But the most bitch part about this whole scene, and my favorite part, is that after they have sex for 3 seconds, Marrow says, "Thank you."
Oh no.
I almost spit my drink out. I was like, "Are you?"
Oh,
It's the biggest ick of all time. I'd be like, "I gotta go. Something urgent has just
yikes.
come up in my calendar. I'll call you."
Fonda Lee, don't do it.
And it wasn't, and Shay, like, didn't think it was an ick, which, like, of course she wouldn't, but
No,
I was like, "Do not normalize this."
she expects that. But anyway, thank God that chapter's over.
Mhm.
Hey, when's Hella Pregante?
Mhm.
And she's damn near bursting down the door. Like, Hilo, I gotta talk to you. And he's like, what is it, babe? And apparently she's like, I got a letter from Lon's dumbass ex-wife. And he's like,
Oh, yeah.
what? She's like, yeah, it came like a month ago.
Well, I think it was the letter Lon got before he died. Because
Oh,
he got that
right.
letter that he was like, "Ooh, I know this is from my ex-wife. I'm not trying to have those
I didn't
feelings
even
right
make
now."
that connection.
And then
Huh.
he just he put it down and,
Yeah.
never looked to read it. But they were like, because she was cleaning out Lon's study, because Hilo's been kind of remodeling it to, make more of a bar and add, cushier armchairs and make it more Hilo.
Yeah.
So Wen was like, "Just let me clean out the stuff, and I'll take a look through it and, sort it out." And Hilo was like, "Thank you, that would be a great help." And then she finds this letter.
Yeah, and it's essentially his ex-wife going like, "Hey, by the way, I had a son, and it's definitely yours." And I was like, doubt.
You don't think it's his?
No. Someone who,
Interesting.
someone, I don't know, like the way that she was described by everybody else in the last book, she's untrustworthy as hell. She's absolutely the kind of like person who would be like, "Oh yeah, it's yours, pay me."
Yeah, that's true, honestly, because I wish we could do, a timeline match because, who knows how long she was gone. 'Cause, the reason they broke up was because she was cheating on him with another guy.
Yeah,
But w so, how? I mean, there's a way
there's
to find
no,
out. We can do a
there
DNA
is.
test. But,
Maybe. I don't know if that exists in this land world, but
oh, yeah. Well, do they have, a jade fueled 23andMe? I don't know.
could be. But yeah, like she was fucking this dude and Lon at the same time. Fuck you. There's no way to know. Take a hike.
But Wen is in, nesting maternity mode, and she's like, "We
You
have to
have to
have
get him.
both of them here, yeah, bring the children to me now." And he was like, "I guess." So Wen's like, "I'll write to her, don't worry." And then she doesn't want him to go to, the islands or wherever,
Yeah,
and he's like, "I have to go."
I gotta. Babe, I got. And the way that Wen is just kind of like, I don't want you to leave because it's not safe out there. She says this like 8 times over the course of their conversation. And I'm like, boy, oh boy. We're really just like buttering the biscuit with ominous portent.
Mhm.
That's kind of like the whole chapter. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a short one.
Yeah.
It's, one conversation, basically.
Oh, yeah. I made a note that says Yuwiwin sounds like a fake joke name for a Star Wars species.
Yeah, it does.
But yeah, Hilo flies out to Yuwiwa to go find out about his aunt's dumb son and to see
Yeah,
what's what. And he takes Ken and Tar with him.
and, Knife Boy, who Anden's ex-crush,
Yeah, and
Lot Jr.
let's Lote.
Lot.
Lote.
Lote? Oh,
Yeah, it's
sorry,
Lote.
my bad.
Um, they just kind of like turn up. It's like that they turn up in essentially Cuba
Yeah.
and then drive out to this guy's lavish estate where it's this crotchety old guy going like, "Hey, maybe we can get into business together." And he's like, "Fuck you, you're a smuggler.
Yeah.
Who do you think you are?" Like
Yeah.
everybody around here, like all of the smugglers' cronies are wearing jade, but they're wearing it on like necklaces and stuff, which is apparently very bitch.
Well, and it's, fake jade too. They're essentially just wearing, costume
Yeah,
jewelry.
and he's like, you got all your men around here wearing fake ass jade, and you want to do business with me?
Yeah.
And I forget the guy's name because it's a weird, chunky name to say.
It's spelled Zapunyo. Like Zapunyo? Zapunyo? I don't know.
Yeah, something like that. Zapeno.
Um,
Um, he gets so mad when Hilo's like, "Fuck you and your fake Jade. I don't need you. You guys are just a bunch of criminals."
yeah, and he's like, "Well, if you don't wanna make a deal with me, like, I know somebody who I could make a deal with," like, alluding to Ite and the Mountain Clan, and Hilo, like, laughs in his face. He's like, "You think she's gonna wanna do business with you? Like, fuck off." Like, this guy thinks he's holding all the cards, and he has, like he is so clueless.
Yeah, and he's like, "Anyway, where's my cousin?" And he's like, "Oh, he's out by the pool enjoying himself." And he's like, "All right, then I'm fucking out of here." And he goes out to the pool, and he does my favorite thing, the like the dishonor strike,
Yeah.
when the father who's upset with his wayward son cracks him across the face. It's so good. He just beats the shit out of him at this guy's pool.
Yeah. 'Cause he's, like, lounging with, like, a swimsuit lady, and he's, like,
A couple
drinking
of them.
cocktails, and he's like, "Oh my god, cousin Hilo," like, as if they're gonna party, and Hilo just beats the shit out of him immediately,
Yeah.
and it's like, "Get your clothes, we're leaving." It's great.
uh then the next chapter is just a continuation of this one. I don't know why she didn't just make this the same chapter.
They were each, like, 4 pages long, it doesn't make sense.
Yeah. But it's the classic bot police gambit. They're on their way to the airport, and suddenly they're stopped by police. And it's like, okay. And even Hilo's like, okay, I understand what's going on here. So he just like gets out of the car, and they're like, "Stop! Don't move, Mister. We'll shoot." And he's like, "No, you won't." So then they do, and he just like moves the bullets out of the way, and then everybody they
Yeah.
kill them all. They kill all the
Yeah.
cops.
One thing that I think we both noticed in this chapter, though, is that Fonda Lee's, like, fight descriptions have gotten way better. I could
Significantly better.
actually picture what was going on. It wasn't just, like, 2 men standing, staring at each other, like, trying to break into their minds or something. Like, there
Yeah,
were knives flying, like, Tar was, like, leaping over cars. It was great.
yeah. Like there were bullet impacts all along the tarmac when Hilo just kind of threw them out of the way,
Mhm.
uh,
Huge, huge improvement.
and then everybody did.
Mhm.
And then I said, well, this, because earlier I had made a note that said this cousin side plot seems really low stakes. And then after they killed like 5 or 6 police officers, I was like, oh, well, this low stakes subplot turned into an international incident.
Mhm.
And that's they just kind of leave, and then Hilo kind of like has a heart to heart with Lot,
Yeah.
and Lot's just kind of like, I'm tough, but I'm also kind of upset that I've killed a man.
Yeah.
Where he's like, I killed 2 of them. Oh no! And he's like, no, you killed one of them. The other guy will be fine.
Yeah. He's being really emo and sulky, and Hilo's like, "Look at the pillar," when the pillar is speaking to you,
Yeah.
and he's like, "Oh, sorry."
Sorry.
Honestly, all I got out of this conversation, I was like, "I think Hilo's actually gonna be a really good dad."
Yeah. Oh god. Well, chapter 11. It's time for another episode of Anden Pouts.
Yep. His little
He's
Espenian life.
Yeah, he's sent to Espenia. Is it spelled with just an E, or is it Hespenia?
Espenian.
I Throughout the entirety of the first book, I was assuming that Espenia was like Spain, Italy, sort of those Mediterranean places.
Yeah.
But Turns out it's England
Yeah, fully. There's
because
a
the
map in this book.
the audiobook narrator puts on, God bless him, his absolute tryingest.
Oh yeah, I forgot.
He does it again in this audiobook, and it's
Well, at least
even
he's
worse.
consistent. Because he can't do an English accent to save
Yeah.
his life.
It's like the guy later on when there's the misunderstanding with the bike. The guy's like, "Why'd you take my bike?" And I'm like, "Oh God!"
Vinnie Jones, is that you?
It's truly heinous. He should have just stuck with not doing an accent.
Yeah.
But I guess he was distinguishing. I
That's
guess
great.
it's really bad. But he's in Hispania now, and we get another, like, he goes to meet with this, like, essentially foreign exchange family where they host, like, it's a host family, and they're
Yeah.
hosting him in their house, and he's like, he gives them some booze, he gives them some other stuff, some cash, I think,
A teapot.
and a teapot that's a very special teapot that's basically like an IOU for a favor later on.
Yeah.
And then we get another, just, I didn't know where else to put it, info, like political info dump.
Yes.
And it's really jarring because it's clear that poor Fondly didn't know where else to put it or to make it organic. So she was just like, well, Anden, let me tell you about Espenian politics.
Yeah.
But it's fine, I get it. It's hard to make that stuff
But like he
organic.
could have put it he's going there for school. He could have learned it in a lecture. Like,
That's true.
and it could have been built out over like a conversation between students and the teacher. Like it didn't need to be an info dump, but here we are.
Yeah.
I
But
think like a few months go by though
yeah,
during this chapter.
it's a really long time that he's over the span of this chapter, because he's like going to school. We realize he's racist because
Yeah.
he's like, there's no one else here who's like me, and he was gonna go sit next to the Toonie kids, which I can only assume are like Indian or Arabic kids.
Mhm.
And he's like, but no, we don't trust them. And I was like, whoa,
Yeah.
whoa, 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 Anden,
And
buddy.
then hello.
Didn't realize you were a hateful person. And like
Yeah.
he, over this chapter, he really lets out his like racist tendencies.
It's like very like xenophobic almost.
Yeah. And later, I think I forget, he comes, oh, he witnesses like a, essentially like a shakedown where these
Yeah, at a
people are in a
convenience store.
convenience store are shaking down the owner for cash. And Anden like breaks down. He's like, "What's happening?"
Yeah,
And
he
then
like freezes up.
when he sees them like going, hey, pay up. He's like, "Oh, it's just like tribute money." And then they get mad and want more money, and then they smack the old guy around a bit, and they're like, Anden's like, "What? Why would they hit him? That's not how you do business. This
Yeah.
is weird." And then he finds out that it's like a bunch of just gangs around, and he's completely baffled by the concept of gangs that aren't greenbones.
Yeah.
And I'm like, did going to this Hispanian school make you an idiot?
Like, surely you have to be aware that other cultures and cultural concepts exist, especially
You'd
when this
think.
is not so different from the dynamics you're
Yeah.
used to.
Like the differences are just in like the respect aspect is missing.
Yeah.
That's it.
It's very strange.
And he cannot wrap his head around it.
No. It's very I just don't get it.
But anyway,
Um, he goes back to the couple he's staying with, and he
yeah.
tells them about what he saw, and we find out that there's this, like, kingpin guy named Blaze Cromner, which is, like, so Scandinavian supervillain.
Yeah. He would
Like, in my
sound like
yeah,
Blaze Cromner would sound like Dan
Dan
Stevens.
Stevens. I wrote that in my notes. I was like, I don't care what he looks or sounds like. He looks like Dan Stevens and sounds like Dan Stevens selling Aloe Glow.
Hollow glow.
Luxurious.
Wants the materials within the skin. within within the dermal layer. Uh, yeah, after they find out about Blaze Cromler, whatever his dub name is, Anden's just like, and then the chapter's over. Thank God.
Well, there's one small thing that happens before it ends where he's walking home one day
Oh right,
and he hears a couple who like frequently argue violently
yeah.
are arguing again, but this time the lady like bursts out of the house and like runs into traffic, and she's saved by this guy riding a bike who's obviously a greenbone, and Anden is flabbergasted that greenbones live among him, and this greenbone like is like laughing and he's like tossing his hair and he's like, obviously they're not just on Kekon, loser. And like there's no way Anden is not immediately in love with this boy, because boys who are mean to him are like his favorite
Yeah,
type of boys.
yeah,
But that's the end of the
that's true.
chapter.
I think this is when the second like Yakuza business acquisition meeting happens, and
Mhm.
they're all coming to actually hammer out a truce, and the mountain immediately comes in with the energy of, how could you let this happen to us?
Yeah. When it's like you are the reason. You are
It is
how this can
entirely their
happen.
fault. Like,
They're like, "Oh, stop, like, why are you keeping the jade mining stopping? We can't do that." As if, like, it's not directly because of what they did.
I was really irritated by this chapter
Me too.
because the contents of their meeting is almost identical to the last book.
Yeah.
The same amount got accomplished, but at this time they're just like, deal. I'm like, what do you mean?
I know.
It's completely unearned. Nothing has happened
Yeah,
from then to now that would justify what's happening.
like, the mountain has faced no consequences, has shown
And
no
yeah,
remorse,
and they're
and
getting everything
everybody's
they
acting.
want.
Yeah, and, like, it's like, "Oh, no one cares about the balance books from 3 years ago. Ugh, old news, like, stop bringing it up. Get over it." And they're
Yeah,
like, "You aren't paying back however much money you
you
stole
had to pay
through
back money.
stealing jade." And, like, they're trying to make these cordial, like, territory negotiations, and then Hilo makes her swear that Anden won't be harmed, and also they have to hand over Doru, and Ait's like, "Oh, he's in this village, he's not guarded. Who cares?"
Yeah, and I like leans in close to Hilo, and I wrote it in my notes as Aitmata gives Hilo an offer that he can refuse, because it is just the weakest offer. She's like, do it or else, and he's like, no.
Yeah, she's like, "Come be a horn again. You were never supposed to be pillar. Come be horn for me." And then he was like, "You're the reason I'm in this position." And she's like, "Oh, we all did things we thought were necessary in a time of
Oh,
war that she started." And
yeah,
Hilo's like, "I'll never swear oaths to you." She's like, "I'm extending a hand instead of a blade. This won't happen again." Only that this is the second time she's done this,
yeah,
just to a different member of the Call family. So it's like, okay, your threats are a little empty now. Like,
yeah.
it
But
was
also,
kind
he's
of
like,
like,
okay, I'd love for you to come at me with a blade. Go
yeah,
ahead,
fully.
see what happens. But like, her threat was so flimsy.
So weak.
So far, this book has been really kind of disappointing.
I know.
And I don't like saying that
Like
because the
when
first one
Barrow's
was so
chapter,
good.
I know. But like when Barrow's chapter is the most entertaining so far, it's like,
No, we're
ooh.
really struggling. This book better pick up.
Yeah, well, I mean, we've got 400 more pages at least, so
Or
hopefully.
in my case, 18 hours.
Yeah.
In the next chapter, they have press conference talking about all the cool stuff, like the agreements they just made. And I made a note because the press conference takes place on Boat Day. And I was like, hey, remember Boat Day?
Yeah. What
Uh,
happened last boat day?
Anden got kidnapped by Gaunt.
Oh, right, yeah.
Um, oh man, I was really frustrated with this chapter too. Because after the press conference where they're just like, we are committed to doing it, and also better things for everyone, and Jade will be back to normal. Thank you. No questions, please. Thank you. And
Yeah.
then they like the family gets together and they have a conversation that went right over my head. I like my ears glazed over. I don't know what they talked about. Oh, it was them
They
making they were making the plan that doesn't matter.
That and also, like, they were essentially just having, like, a Fast and Furious style Sunday dinner
Oh,
where Hilo's expressing that I told him he's a bad pillar, and he's like, I'm a bad pillar, I shouldn't be pillar," and Wen's like, "No, you have something I doesn't,
family.
family," and Hilo's like, "Oh my god, so true, we got family." And then they're like, "Okay, what's the plan?" And Hilo's like, "For everybody except those of us in this room, the plan is what we said today,"
Right.
which is no plan at all. But he's like, "We need the mountain. They need the mountain support to crack down on jade smuggling, and they need more white rats to do something." And they're like sitting around the table, and Shay's like, "We should be worrying about Igutan and Espenia, but everybody else thinks they need to be worrying about jade smugglers and the mountain." And then they kind of just forget all of that. And Hilo's like, "Shay, why don't you bring Wound Poppy home for dinner? Haha. I see how he looks at you." And Shay's like, "Ugh." And that's like dinner ends basically after that. They're like, they need to figure out the mountain clan's weaknesses.
Yeah.
Yeah, duh.
What a thesis statement. In this
Yeah,
essay, I will explain. Like,
we need
that's
to
not
exploit their weaknesses.
finding the mountain clan's weaknesses is not a plan.
By the way, they've been at war with the mountain for almost 2 calendar years at this point. You haven't found one weakness? What have you been doing? But
This
yeah,
is this I'm starting to see the cracks when the same problems carry over into the next book. I'm like, where is the titular war?
I know. No
Where
warring
is it?
has occurred. Um, like
And I can understand the mentality of like it's a bird's eye view of a war. You know, we're not down on the ground with the soldiers punching up all the time, but it's like the political view, like generals
sure.
pushing the figures across the board. But
It's
that's
not
not
even
it
that.
either.
No, it's a
People are
state of
just kind of
mind.
people are just kind of sitting around talking about it and not really putting that talk into action. So it's just, it gives off the impression in the first book that the Mountain Clan were constantly gaining territory, and No Peak was like, oh my god, how is this happening? And then they would just kind of sit there and wait for something else to happen before they could go, oh my god, we're losing. And it's like, well, you guys have to do stuff. You know, it war, wars take two people. Currently, it's just an invasion.
Yeah. And, like, it hasn't changed much. Like,
No,
No Peak gained some territory back after
allegedly.
everything that happened. Yeah, but now they've had to give back, like, half of that. But I don't know. It's very strange.
It's very
But,
frustrating.
it is. Um, but later after this dinner, Wen and Hilo are, like, in bed, and she brings up what they were talking about at dinner, and Hilo's like, "Why don't you bring this stuff up, like, when we're actually talking about it?" Like, not in an accusatory way,
Right.
but he's like, "Your opinion is valid, like, you can speak your mind." And she's like, "It's not my place, I'm not a green bone." And he was like, "No, but your family." And then
Family.
she's like, "But I like only talking to you because I can speak my mind, and you even if you don't agree, you always listen." Which is like, I get it, but also, come on, girl.
Stand up for
But
yourself.
then she tells him that Aini, however you say her name, wrote back like, Lon's
Annie.
ex-wife. Oh, is it Annie? It's spelled Eyni. I'm like, "Aini." Okay, Annie wrote back, and it took over a month, and, like, Wen wrote her a lovely novella of feels, and she basically sends 2 lines back that's like, "Don't write to me again, I'm not coming to visit." And
Yeah,
Wen is, like,
that's very rude.
offended. And he was like, "No, that tracks. She was always a stuck-up bitch."
Yeah.
Um, but then Wen's like, maybe you should write back this time or go see her." And he's like, "Ugh, whatever, maybe."
Yeah, he's like, I'm already packed from the last trip. Fine.
Yeah, but also, like, how high on the priority list is this right now? Like,
Nuclear low. But Gwen is so hopped up on babies that she's like, you need to bring that boy back now.
yeah,
He's your brother's son.
yeah,
And I'm like, maybe. And jury's still out on that one.
yeah, true.
But also that sex scene with Hilo and Wen was weird as well.
Yeah,
Like
not as weird as
the
Shay's,
way it
but
was worded made me go, ew, there could have been a better way. Because like Hilo lying there contemplating the notion that there was a baby inside
Oh,
her
yeah, I forgot about that.
turned him on. And I was like,
That's why
"No.
yeah.
No. Don't say that
Yeah.
part."
Yeah,
You
it
could have
was like
said anything else turned him on, but not the baby though. That's
the
weird.
fetus was the thing. Yeah, that was like a ugh, like, so far, all of the sex scenes that she's written have left me feeling uncomfortable,
Yeah.
and not because, like, it was, like, too spicy. There was just something weird and icky about each one of them. Like, the first one with Wen and Hilo in the first book was, like, aggressive for no reason. And then this one with Shay is like, thank you?" And we're saying scrotum now? Okay. And then this one was like, "The baby really turned him on." I'm like, "Can
Let's
we
not. Do not.
not?"
But the next chapter, Shay did the thing that I hoped this book wouldn't do. And she goes to see
Why
Doru.
does it have to be her? Anyone else? Like, I
Because
wanted the
anyone like
satisfying fuck you. Like,
anyone else would have walked in there, killed him, and left. It would have been a
yeah,
4-paragraph chapter.
I know. But it would have been so much more satisfying.
Yes. But
than this.
instead we get, in my case, 30 minutes
Oh.
of Doru, who's clearly been perving on some girl again.
And they all laugh it off like it's like, "Oh, he's just an old pervert. Good old Doru." It's like he is fucking children.
Yeah. Fondling kids. Teenagers. But anyway, like, my note is just kill him. There's literally nothing this man can tell you. But I was wrong. I was fundamentally wrong. Uh, because he every time he talks, he's so full of shit.
Yeah.
And Shay eats it up because apparently she has no frontal lobe. Um, but he essentially says, like, what you really need to, like, you're not going to get the mountain the way you guys have been doing it. It's not going to work out for you. She's too good. And Shay's like, then what do I do? And he's like, get cozy with people that are gonna succeed her. And I was like, I cannot believe. I'm baffled. Completely flabbergasted that this crotchety old fuck had to tell her her job.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
The
really
most
embarrassing.
the most obvious thing too. Like, this is politics 101. Make friends with the enemy of your enemy.
Like Disney movies cover this.
Ay 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 ay. And then he goes offline in Minecraft.
Yeah. That's one way to put it.
Can't say that word. The internet doesn't
That's
like it
right.
anymore.
Oh, that's
So
right.
he went offline permanently.
Right. It was disconnected.
And then Shay cries about it.
Ugh,
Single,
please.
she single tears his crotchety, disgusting pervert ass.
She's like, he was a devious old pervert, but he was my devious old pervert.
Yeah.
And then they are like, "Oh, bury him with the inscription. Here lies the green bone warrior of Kekon." Stop it.
No, he doesn't deserve that.
Burn it, throw it off a bridge,
Uh,
or
and
just
then
leave him in the house.
my last note of this chapter is, boy, the last 3 chapters have been boring as hell.
Yeah.
But thankfully, chapter 15 is not boring. Well, I mean, it kind of is, but it's
It
got
kinda is.
interesting stuff in it.
Yeah.
Where Wen is really flexing her muscle as a spy master.
I know, it's great to
She's
see.
she's weaving a web of assets. The
Mhm.
information flows like spice on Arrakis.
And I respect that she's doing it from a bathhouse. So
Yeah.
she gets to go have a little spa self-care day and then just hang out in this like cozy tea room and have people come and like tell her secrets. Like it's literally the best situation.
The book kind of makes it seem like it's very confusing the way it's explained, because the way she, like, in the backstory of it, where she's like, I remember when I first started doing this,
Mhm.
they make it seem like she started going to this bathhouse on accident, on purpose.
Yeah.
They're like, she just happened to be there and she noticed that there was a bunch of uh wives and family members of the Mountain Clan. So she's like, it's a good thing I picked this place to come here to do this. And I was like, which one is it?
Yeah, I know it's not clear.
But she, I think, I forget which one, because the sort of backstory and the present day kind of blur together in this chapter.
Yeah.
But I think, like, an older lady comes up to her and is like, I don't have much for you this time, but I need your help.
Yes.
And I don't
Yeah,
remember
it
what the help is.
so there's 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 one woman who comes first. Her name's Mila. She's a secretary in the weatherman's office for the mountain. The mountain
Mm-hmm.
has just hired a new weatherman
Right.
because he was like the old weatherman being fired was like the one thing that the mountain clan had to do to like atone for their jade stealing sins. But
Right.
she has the schedule for the new weatherman. So she gives that to Shay. And she's the one who's saving up money to get her and her 8-year-old daughter away from like her violent husband.
Right.
Then this old lady comes to visit her and she doesn't have a ton of information, but Wen is like, tell me everything you can about the Coben family because Doru told Shay that they're the
Right.
family who have the strongest like claim to the mountain clan's power after Ait because she has no heir, no successor. So there's like two families that are kind of like vying for this position.
Yeah.
One has like better standing and prestige. One has more people in like more green bones in and like a stronger like natural claim because he is like there's a child who is her only like living nephew or something like that,
Yeah.
and that is the Coben family. And the other family has like more adults and more, I think, like good standing, but they also have this like shady reputation that like they are shine addicts prone to getting the itches.
Right.
And so she wants to get information on the Coben family, and that's it, basically. But
I
there's another like family discussion at some
Yeah,
point.
they're
And
talking about which family they should pursue
right.
for this alliance. And they're kind of like weighing the merits of each of these families. And they're like, well, this one's pretty good. Like, they've got a firm bloodline, but this one has more people in it. And I'm like, they are not thinking like the CIA when they should be. It does
Yeah.
not matter. You want just a puppet, like a puppet government that you can topple whenever you want.
Yeah, pick the one that will be the most beholden to you.
Yeah, pick the one that you can knock over like dominoes if the need arises. Like, you don't
Yeah.
want someone who's super strong in the place of your enemies. You want a puppet organization.
Yeah, it's very dumb.
Start thinking like the CIA, man.
But I think, like, they're so naive at their core that, like, they just
Are
want
they,
both
or
clans to be
is it a
well,
failing of Fond du Lis, or are they actually that naive? Because
I
I
think it's
am really
both.
having a struggle
I know, I think it's
telling the
both because
difference.
I think that, like, the Call family really wants 2 clans working together and, like, being the caretakers and custodians of Kekon.
Right,
And but we don't that's us having to do the work to make that connection. Like, that's not given to us, and
right.
it's not even hinted to us. Like, that's something that we have to put together based on what we know about the calls. Maybe. Like, I don't know. So,
Is
I
there?
think ultimately it's the author's responsibility to make it clear, but
Yes.
I don't know.
It absolutely is, and it, going on what is on the page, the Call family just kind of like deer in the headlights their way through everything. They're just like, well, gee
Yeah.
whiz, what are we gonna do? Gee
Yeah.
whiz, I can't fight it, therefore I don't know how to solve it. Like, boy, oh boy, you guys can't be this stupid. You've been around for decades.
Well, that's the thing too, like and it's not even an issue of that it's the new young generation
It's
having
always
to
been that
take
way.
yeah, like, having to take power before they were ready to do so, like, they don't have like, their whole family has just been kind of, like, bulldozing their way through problems.
But then so is the mountain. Like, the mountain's problem solving capabilities are exactly the same as the Note Peak, and yet for some reason the mountain is just better at it. It
Yeah,
doesn't
I
make
guess
sense.
because 'cause they're willing to, like,
Oh,
do
they're
the
willing to
dirty
be,
work.
yeah, they're villains.
They're being dirty hands.
Yuck. Anyway, the last chapter is another fucking Anden chapter, and
Yay.
my note. I wrote 2 notes for this chapter, even though it's kind of
Mhm.
longish. And those 2 notes are, I'm completely checked out of Annen's side story. And um, why doesn't the man whose bike I stole believe I didn't steal it?
Yeah, like I'm really disappointed in Anden's character arc specifically because I really enjoyed Anden's chapters in the first book. Like
Yeah.
I thought he was an endearing, kind of like anxious, conflicted boy. And he had a lot of interesting things to think about. And looking through the world through his eyes was endearing and kind of fun.
Hmm.
But now he's a fucking idiot.
Yeah.
Like, he finds out like, very predictably becomes obsessed with, like, the Greenbone bicycle boy. He's like, "Who is he? Oh my god, there's green bones among us?"
Yeah.
And the family he's living with are like, "Yeah, of course there are. There's, like, 40 or 50 in our neighborhood."
People
So now
move,
every
Anden.
day when he comes home every day after seeing somebody, he's like, "Is this person a Greenbone? Is it them? I bet it's them." They're like, "Who cares?"
It's so weird.
It is, and
Because, like, fundamentally, Anden's character is written worse.
yeah.
He It's like the moment he said no, I did, like at the graduation ceremony, the moment he was like, "No, I don't want to take my oaths." He dropped like 40 IQ because
Was
now
like his cosmic punishment.
he's like him and Espenia is a 8-year-old going around going, "Is that a green bone?" And they're like, "No, honey, it isn't." And he's like, "Why not?" "Well, because he's from Espenia. He can't be a green bone." "Why not?" You know, that kind of shit. And it's like, shut the fuck up, kid. I said no.
Yeah.
It's bizarre. And then there's like, he keeps wondering who these green bones, like, he can't wrap his head around the fact that people can move to another country,
Like he
even though
did?
he's done it. He keeps referring to himself as a green bone, even though he's fucking ain't.
No.
And then at some point he's riding a bike and some guy, he's like, and then some guy's like chasing after him and he's like, "That's weird." And the guy's like, "You fucking stole my bike, you idiot." And he's like, "Oh, my bad." And the guy, understandably pissed, is like, "What, you don't fucking, why would you steal my bike, you moron?" And he's like, "Hey, that's rude. Apologize to me." And then they get in a fight. And I'm like, "What's happening? This should easily avoidable."
Yeah.
Why is Anden picking it? Like, why has he decided that now is the time he doesn't understand that even if it was a misunderstanding, he's still fucking pissed?
Yeah, he's, like, really digging his heels in about he's like, "I'm not a thief, I just mistook your bike for my bike." And so he's not apologizing, he has broken Espenian, so he can barely speak the language, and he's, like, really getting, like he's splitting hairs about words he can't say, like, it's very strange.
Yeah, and then
And,
they get into this fight, and he beats the ever loving Christ out of this guy. And then everybody, he's like, "Yeah, mwah, mwah." And then everyone around is like, "Oh my god, what a monster." And he's like, "What? I won fair and square. What's the problem?" And then he goes home, and his host family is like, "Hey, dumb fuck. You can't solve all your problems with duels in Espenia. That's a crime here." And he's like, "What do you mean? A crime?" And they're like, how do we put this for someone who can't speak words? Uh, fight, fight, no, no. And he's like, "That's outrageous." It was one of the most baffling chapters I've read in a long time. And I just
Yeah,
came out of a book that was like nonsense.
yeah. Yeah, it was I have no words. It was so dumb. It was like, "Anton, what happened to you? Like, did that fight with Gaunt, like, remove a chunk of your brain? Did it just,
Yeah,
like, mildly lobotomize you? Like,
it had to
what
have.
happened?"
Makes no
He's
sense.
he's yeah, going through the world, like you said, like an 8-year-old.
But
But that's all we read.
that's all we read. I hope this book gets better. I really want it to be
Please.
good.
I know.
And I hope this isn't Fonda Lee just in like that middle slump.
I know.
Because I do want to read Jade Legacy anyway. Like even if this
Yeah.
book sucks.
Yeah, same. I'm in for the ride.
Yeah.
But it sucks because usually the second book or the second part of a trilogy is unanimously my favorite. Like, I always love the second book because it's like characters are established, so
Yeah.
you already know the stakes. You don't have to do any groundwork. You can just get into the action and stuff happens, and it's just like a great adventure.
Hmm.
And then you don't have to worry about it being the end of things because that's
Yeah.
sad too. So it's just like a nice little moment in the middle, but it's like we're having to reestablish so much of what happened in the first book
Yeah.
and redo it, but not in any way that's meaningfully different. It's very weird. Like
Yeah.
say like the Yakuza business acquisition meeting happens again the exact same way with the exact same outcome. And like people, I don't know, like very basic level espionage is happening, like that should be done and dusted by now. Like and some of the characters are just worse and
Yeah.
dumber. Like I don't really know what to make of it so far.
Well, I guess we'll find out more in 2 weeks when we read 16 more chapters.
Yeah, we'll be halfway through. So it fucking better get better.
No kidding. All right, everybody. Well, thanks for watching, and we'll see you in 2 weeks.
Farewell.
Bye, everybody.